homelessness individuals into long-term institutional settings for humane treatment through the appropriate use of civil commitment will restore public order. Surrendering our cities and citizens to disorder and fear is neither compassionate to the homeless nor other citizens. The president now directing several federal agencies, including Health and Human Services, HUD, and the Department of Transportation, to assess their grant programs and give funding priority to states and cities that prioritize the following: enforcing prohibitions on open drug use, urban camping and loitering, and urban squatting. The order comes after the Supreme Court ruled last month that unhoused people can be arrested and fined for sleeping in public spaces. That decision overturned a lower court ruling that deemed the practice cruel and unusual punishment.
Peace, peace, and blessing. Another day in the newsroom. News never in the working service. Today, we got a PSA, a public service announcement, talking to you, the people, we, the people. This is a touchy topic as we is in trying time. This is a crossroad for the nation and the world. The world and the way that we look at the Constitution will change. I'm your host, Henry, and the co-host, Shinakama JML. We here to drop some knowledge on you today. How you doing? How you doing?
Hey, man, you already know, man. It's been a hard-fought week, the beginning of the new week. But we got to stay on top of our game over here at News because the news don't stop. And apparently, these politicians and their so-called civil pressure don't stop either, it seems.
Facts. We got a lot going on. And it started with the big, beautiful bill and executive order that followed. This affects homeless people and people who will become homeless. And as my elder told me, trouble is easy to find, but it's hard to get out. So in life, we make mistakes, and sometimes life circumstances occur. So I'm not here to judge anyone. We not here to judge anyone. We here to just drop facts and things that occur and will occur.
Well, let me get into this. Usually I say this at the end of the show, but you know, since it's more relevant right at this exact moment, just because we're going through a negative circumstance don't mean you can't have a positive outcome. You know, I don't say that at the end of the show every time for no reason. You know what I mean? I live by that. That's something that personally is part of my moral and ethical standard for myself, not just for other people, because I don't, anything that I apply onto other people, I also apply onto myself times 10, times 100, times 1,000, depending on the intensity of what it is that is the incorporation of the tenement, you know? So you have to pay attention to those type of things in your own life, but you also have to be prepared to have ambition and to get yourself motivated to get into a greater circumstance than the circumstances that you're in. And a lot of these people who ended up homeless, a lot of these people who end up drug addicts, a lot of these people who we're going to be talking about in the show, you know what I mean? A lot of us has been in those positions before. I know, Henry, you've been in some positions where you ain't been in a appropriate manner. I've been in some positions in my life where I haven't been in an appropriate manner. You know, we was young. We made some decisions that was questionable. You know what I'm saying? And you can't hold it against other people either. This is where they say the young kids got that new phrase that they like to say, you got to listen and you don't judge, because remember, everybody is one paycheck away from being homeless. If they take away your job, are you going to be able to survive, or are you homeless? That's what people got to understand. And this is one of the things in the realistic aspect of living in the 9-to-5 societies, and not even just living in the 9-to-5. Let's even get it in, and let's expand the wisdom, right? Because we've been in the street life too, our whole lives too, Henry. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta also appeal to the people who's in the streets. You know what I mean? You're one missed re-up away from being homeless. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't think that a lot of the people who make those type of moves realize that either. You know, too, that if you don't get a re-up, how are you supposed to make it till next week? You know, so
yeah.
I want to make sure that we're making it an applied wisdom that this is affecting all aspects of American society. It's not just people who have the 9-to-5 associations. And not just that, we're going to bring out some other information where people in executive positions and people who's in senior management is also looking at the same thing.
Yes. So we ran into this video, and this young fella, he drops some wisdom that we got to get into. So let's go to the first clip.
What's Executive Order 14321? Professor Poutine here, time for Mysteries Histories. Nominally titled Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets. Sounds like a good thing. This is the executive order that's being used by the National Guard and ICE and police to sweep the homeless people off the streets in Washington, D.C., and maybe in Memphis and Chicago and St. Louis, wherever else the Trump administration decides to go. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm not homeless, so I don't care. There's a few sentences in there you probably should be aware of, and if you don't believe me, I put the link in my bio below. You can read it for yourself. There is a sentence in there that authorizes the reversal of state and federal precedents against involuntary incarceration. And it encourages all the federal agencies that are executing this particular order to target chronic drug users, the mentally ill, and the homeless. And they are to put those people into, quote, appropriate facilities for an appropriate amount of time. Now, you might be thinking that's a great idea. Put them into a treatment facility, put them into a hospital, put them into a halfway home. If need be, I guess we could put them into a mental institution or a prison. Yeah, but the executive order also says that if there's no room in a mental hospital or a treatment facility or prison, quote, this executive order ensures that those individuals are not to be released back into the public, end quote. Well, where are we going to put them? Oh, right, Alligator Alcatraz.
You're going to have a little
That's
part
some real
two
heavy. That's some real heavy information, you know, because we might as well just bring it out like what we was talking about the other day when we first ran across this information, Henry. And you made a valid point, right? Because the wording is so vague but direct. You know, they, like you were saying, it doesn't have to be that you're on heavy drugs. It doesn't have to be that you're homeless. You could just be an alcoholic. Say, like, for example, if you are alcoholic and you in your domestic situation, you always end up in a predicament where your significant other is calling the police to try to use leverage on you, etc. We know the games. Everybody knows we're grown folks here on the show. I mean, if you got kids watching, I can understand that part, but this is strictly for grown folks. And we have the understanding about that, these type of things, that it's just really to use leverage, trying to gain power in a powerless situation. But now, say with this new rule, the cops come because, like, say you guys is arguing, the neighbors call the police, it's a noise complaint, the cops show up, they know that you're an alcoholic, the husband or the wife or whoever, because we know how it could go both ways in the circumstance. And whoever it is, now they put you in the appropriate facility for the appropriate amount of time. Now you can't go to work on Monday, but who knows when you're getting out, because the due process is removed, because they said an appropriate amount of time. What is an appropriate amount of time? It's obviously not an established paradigm, because they're not saying, oh, if you got, but when you're proven to have been removed from alcoholism or violent tendency or whatever, they're not saying they're going to get released. They're not giving us 3 months, 6 months, etc. Now they're saying an appropriate amount of time. What if to them the appropriate amount of time is 10 years? Now you just did a 10-year bid without the judge sentencing you to any type of a bid.
We living in a time where America supposed to be fruitful, one of the greatest nations in the world. But the system has failed when there's 20% of the population that living in poverty. 20%. That's a percentage of people that live in paycheck to paycheck. And it's to the point that they can't even save $500 for mercy. It's hard. We living in a time where people is getting laid out. Any job, government job, where people believe they are secure. Private jobs, you get laid off, might be hard for you as an individual to find another job. Bills don't stop because you don't have no income coming. You have to keep lights on. You have to keep water on. They're the two main components for a home to not be abandoned, as an abandoned building. And there's people who living without lights. Some people don't have water. Having them things, you could lose your home. There's sometimes you could lose your home because the government need to have development. So let's finish this last part of the guy speaking.
Good thing we built those concentration camps. And again, you may be saying, yeah, but I'm not homeless. I'm not a chronic drug user. Maybe not. But have you ever sought treatment for alcohol addiction or any other addiction? Have you ever sought medical treatment for anxiety or depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, any other mental illness? Know anybody that has? Because this executive order also authorizes the federal government to hand over the medical records of anybody who might be in need of, quote, involuntary incarceration, end quote. And just as an aside, ICE about a month ago received access to the medical records of all 79 million people on Medicaid. Nominally, this is to go after undocumented migrants, but since most undocumented migrants don't use Medicaid, what do you think ICE is searching those medical records for? Consider yourself updated.
As a trying time, like you were saying, Shin, that people with mental illness, people in America with drug addiction, alcoholism.
Hey, let's not forget what you said that day when you read it off the policy, right? Because I don't think the people know about this, because that was some slick wordplay they used that day when they said that the drug addiction is a mental illness. You know, remember you read that, Henry. That was some slick political wording right there about them saying that if you're a drug addict, it's considered mental illness. You know, and what did he just say at the end? I wonder what they was using, look, why they're looking into the Medicaid records. Because now they're going to know you got a mental illness and they're going to agitate you on purpose. They're going to know that you're psychologically inept for social interactions in certain degrees. And you have to think about this, right? Think about this, right? Whose team do all the psychologists and psychiatrists play for?
Let us know.
The government, right? Who gave them their license to practice? Who could take away the license? So now all they got to do is say, listen, we got these 7 individuals that we need to incarcerate involuntarily. So we need you to sign this paperwork against your clients saying that they are psychologically enabled to care for themselves, or they are psychologically a threat to the greater society and themselves. Now they fall into the category of the people who can be involuntary incarceration, civil detainment.
In World War II, a little history lesson. In World War II, the Nazi in Germany did not just go after Jews. They went after the LGBT community, but it wasn't aimed at. They went after the crippled, the mental ill. They went after immigrants. First, they went after the immigrants, the ones that they deemed not loyal to Germany. Here in America, we going through the same thing. First, they come after the migrants. Next, they coming for us, the people. It's getting debated. American citizens can lose their citizenship. If you nationalize citizen and you protest against the state of Israel or American policies and they deem you not fit for the values that they want us to believe, take away our freedom of speech, take away their privilege, their liberty to be a citizen.
See, and this is the thing, right? It's not because you have to really be technical about the degree of detail that they're using in these laws. Because from my own research independently from the show, because you brought it up, the liberty is not being taken away because of the simple fact of that was what you chose to do with your liberty. So this is how they're able to get around the infringement upon people's liberty, and the also for them to get around due process. You see what I'm saying? Because if you chose a route where it suspends your liberty, if it suspended your liberty, then your constitutional rights are suspended. That's what people have to understand. You have to understand how the wordplay is. It doesn't mean that the Constitution says, yeah, you're right. That is the law. That's what the Constitution says. But based on your liberty of free choice and what you chose, knowing the consequence of your choices, brings in these tyranny and different oppressions that the governmental body can impress upon a body that is without a captain, a vessel without a captain. Remember, it's all about the admiralty, right? The admiralty law, the law of the sea, because that's what all laws is based off. So and everybody knows that a captain without a vessel is a rogue ship. A rogue ship has no freedom. The reason why a rogue ship has no freedom is because it has no national entity that will account for the freedom of the said vessel, right? So, which you know the laws of the sea, Henry, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't got a flag, if you don't got a country's flag flying on your vessel, then they can commandeer your vessel, right?
Yes.
And can take over your ship because you don't have a country backing you up, right? So if that's the case, that's how it works now. Even though you're on the land, right? Well, we might be on the land, but we still going by these admiralty laws. So how do you have liberty if you have no land that your liberty has been established on, right? Yeah. So therefore, you are a pirate. You know what I'm saying? It's wild. I'm laughing because I know it sounds wild. This, you know what I'm saying? I know it sounds wild. To regular people, they're like, "What the hell is he talking about?" But this is exactly how the legal system works in America. If you're a rogue element, you are a pirate. You literally a pirate. You are a pirate, like Jack Cousteau and Johnny Depp. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. They're trying to put you in jail, unlimited, or put you in a concentration camp, right? Because that's what civil detainment is, the facilities they were talking about, which we've been warning people about these concentration camps for the last 20 years. You know? We've been telling people, they told us, nah, we just conspiracy theorists, but they got empty concentration camps in every state, right? Like they was just going to leave them empty. But that the reality of the situation is they're not going to just come start knocking people off. It's a strategic breakdown of the societal barrier. Strategic breakdown. Right now, you got a job in 2025. In 2027, they took away your job already. Now they took away your job. Now you're homeless. Now you're living with family members, or et cetera, and so on and so forth. because they're trying to edge you closer and closer to the legal civil detainment. It's that simple.
Yes, the bill, the executive order that was signed July 24, 2025. It called Ending Crime and Disorder of America.
Hey, let me say something real quick about that too that you probably didn't recognize, and most people won't recognize. But that's gematria, Kabbalah, numerology right there. Because July is the 7th month. So think about that. They're saying to you 24/7. That's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Just so people have an understanding of the numbers game that they're playing with this.
So let's dig in a little bit.
President Trump signed an executive order to restore order in American cities and address vagrancy. The order directs the Attorney General to reverse judicial precedents and end consent decrees that limit state and local governments from committing individuals on the streets who are a risk to themselves or others. The Attorney General will work with federal agencies to prioritize grants for states and cities that enforce bans on open drug use, urban camping, loitering and squatting, and that track sex offenders. The order redirects funding to move individuals suffering from serious mental illness or addiction into treatment centers or other facilities. It ensures that grants for substance use disorder prevention do not fund drug injection sites or illicit drug use. The order also prevents sex offenders receiving homelessness assistance from being housed with children and allows programs to exclusively house women and children. President Trump is taking this action to protect public safety and restore order. The number of people living on the streets during the last year of the Biden administration reached a record high of 274,224. Most of these individuals struggle with addiction or mental health disorders. Federal and state governments have spent billions on programs that have not addressed the root causes of homelessness. President Trump believes moving these individuals into long-term institutional settings is the most proven way to restore public order. He is committed to ending homelessness across America. In 2023, he pledged to use every tool to get the homeless off the streets while ensuring they receive care. In March 2025, President Trump signed an executive order to beautify Washington, D.C., directing the National Park Service to clear homeless encampments and graffiti from federal lands. In May 2025, he established the National Center for Warrior Independence to help homeless veterans receive care and benefits. As part of First Lady Melania Trump's BE Best initiative, the Department of Housing and Urban Development announced a $1.8 million investment to prevent homelessness among young Americans aging out of foster care.
You hear here that it mainly about cleaning up the city. People could be put in an institution for a long period of time. Get them off the street. It reminds me of eminent domain. It reminds me of a movie that when I was young called RoboCop 3. Remove the homeless because people got to understand that a city is business. Every city is an economic center. If you're not working, they want you to work. So to get you ready for the workforce. They got to help where they deem help. Not what you feel like you need help with. What they deem that help clean up the city street. They don't want to have homeless sex offenders because people got to realize most of the time a lot of people who have sex crime end up in shelters, and sometimes shelter is not a comfortable place to stay. You have individuals that might steal from you in the shelter. You might have people with mental disorder. You might want a little more freedom and they might have curfew. So a lot of people will buy themselves a tent and go live on the street where they feel comfortable using their drugs or just feel comfortable staying in the tent and feel secure that way. It stems for so many reasons. Not everybody who have a mental disorder end up homeless. Some people might end up homeless, like Shen said, might wind up going to jail for a minor mistake or a crime. They put you in jail without a bond, or you might have a bond but don't have money to get out. You finish your time, but you might don't have family that take you in. You might don't have a job when you get out. You went in with a job and you getting out without no job.
Yeah, but see, that depends. I think that, Henry, it also depends on your state and municipalities, because, like in Rhode Island, if you don't have no family members or anybody to account for you when you're getting out of prison, they don't just put you right out on the street. They put you in the halfway houses out here where they got to add, like legally, they got to at least give you a fair shot to gain stability. You know what I'm saying? They can't just say, all right, Henry, you're out of jail, or all right, Shin, you're out of jail today, and then tomorrow we throwing you back in there because you homeless. Tomorrow that's not fair opportunity for what they proclaim to be the Department of Correction, right? That's not a correction. That's reinstitutionalization. You know, that's the revolving door of jail, you know, like that they want to try to get people caught up in. But in certain states, they don't allow that type of a immediate turnaround, because, like, say if you just got released, you just did a 5-year bid, they're going to throw you in the halfway house for 6 months to a year to assess whether or not you're physically capable and psychologically capable to sustain actual legitimate independent stability. Practicality.
But you got to remember, aristocrats, you have one person who might have 50 cases on their desk. I know for sure that when I turned 18, I was in foster care. When I turned 18, they just dropped me off. And I had to make ends due. This bill, the good thing about this bill is that they address that to try to help orphans and people who in foster care who age out to have a place to stay or some jobs. So that's beneficial, because it's not the fault of children to be in foster care. And when they turn 18, they adults. To just put them on the street is to cause another generation of hurt.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean, Henry. Like,
Yeah.
you have to give people an established program of stability. You can't just throw people into the street, because it's not that yet. It's not that some people is not capable of overcoming that type of a circumstance, but it's highly unlikely and highly improbable that the majority of people can do that. You might have one or two people that's the example of doing that, but then you got 30 other people who was in the same circumstances them with the same window of time, who wasn't capable of establishing those type of stabilities, like a residence, a consistent job, a career, etc., and so forth. But if, like you said, if they're getting out of these programs and they're establishing their stability, they're helping you to establish the foundation of a long-term stability, and you can't maintain that, then now that's when you're starting to get into the range of getting hit with these civil detainment slash involuntary incarceration, you know, because they got, that's why in a lot of the states that do these things that we're speaking of, Henry, we already know these is democratic states. We already know they're not Republican states. And I'm not trying to get on Republican states either, because Republican states also have some established programs that work in for long-term stability for people too, but not in the same manner as some Democratic states like in New England, New York City, et cetera, and so forth. But then you got to look at other Democratic states like California and see how their programs have failed the people, because they enable certain behavioral patterns based on the programs that they're offering, instead of stabilizing the commitment like Donald Trump and these Republicans is trying to say, to you establishing your own security and stability through working, through education, through alternative means of establishing yourself into a career path or a job that has a lasting circumstance, not just, coming out here, you got a job for 3 months, and then once you off probation or whatever, now you're just back to doing what you was doing before you got into this predicament, And
Well, you was talking about California. I got a little video to show one of the areas in California. Is a concentration of where they put a lot of the homeless people in Los Angeles. They put them in an area called Skid Row. They got documents of this area. We got firsthand footage of this area. So let me share the screen. Children walking, home from school, seeing individuals living on the street. Some taking baths on the street. Some eating and sleeping on the street. Washing clothes on the street. It's an eyesight.
Yep, and the thing is, we have to realize they showed us this in movies too, because if you remember, in the movie Spawn, that's where Spawn was at in a place that looks similar to Skid Row, and he was basically there protecting them homeless people. Spawn, because the militancy of the government had started getting out of hand, and it's always those type of executions on the society in these programs where they're going to try to execute on the people who have no protection and have been the most exploited. So it's very disheartening to understand what's going on to these people. But also you have to have some compassion and understand that we're all human beings at the end of the day. And some people get overwhelmed by their circumstances, and this just exacerbates things such as mental illness and criminal activity, because most people feel like they have no other way to survive or any other way to make it out of their circumstances is other than to either become criminals or to become the socially exploited.
Yeah. Let me show another clip. This is what they done in DC after this bill was passed, and they like Donald Trump seeing police, ICE, and federal agent and National Guard inside DC, cleaning up encampments. He got a safety point behind it, as drug usage could be used right there where children, females, elderly walking in the city of DC.
See, and this is why it's a key social point about it, because that's the part that they're gonna use to exploit the ignorance of the middle class and try to have them reactionary towards these people who really, in the end of the day, are just socially exploited. Because we got to remember the ain't no poppy fields out here in Washington D.C. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
A lot of the drugs outside of marijuana are produced outside of the country, which means they have to get through custom in order to be sold in the street level. So, which we already know, we've seen the reports, we've watched the shows, the movies. We know the government is involved in the hand in the distribution of these narcotics. And also, like I was saying before too, Henry, and I have a lot of people who agree with me on this when I spoke on it. If you have to send a National Guard into a United States city to control social disorder and crime, then the police who's on that force need to be removed from their station and their job, because They obviously weren't doing their job if it has gotten to this point cumulatively. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's no way that this could happen if the police was doing their jobs as well. It has to be a law enforcement oversight in order for it to get this bad that you have to send the military. Because think about it, Henry, right? We just watched those clips. None of those homeless people have firearms. None of those homeless people were aggressively attacking the government officials, even when their home, their encampments, their tents, etc., was being demolished, ripped apart, sliced up. These people didn't attack these officials, which means they're not committing violence. And that means that really that law enforcement had no excuse, because their life is not really on the line if these are not violent offenders. So that the police could have been doing in DC what those people in the clips was doing, what those government officials were doing, you know. The police could have easily been doing it. But you know what's messed up? They're gonna hold these homeless people and psychologically disabled people accountable for their situation, but they're not going to hold the police accountable for their lack of law enforcement.
Yes.
You know, and that doesn't make any sense to me. That don't make sense to me. But they're going to keep their jobs.
And it also scared me because it bring me back into enemy domain, and it bring me back to the point that if they cannot find room in the treatment center, a mental hospital, prison is part of the solution. And it's scary because people got to understand this. If right now you might not have the intelligence to get into the field of dealing with AI technology, a lot of jobs and career will be ending soon. Certain things that humans could do that AI can replace, there will be more layoffs. There will be more people losing their jobs and livelihood. So when that occurs, people will become homeless, needy.
Remember what I said to you earlier today, right, Henry? Remember what I said to you earlier today, right?
Yes.
If you could get an AI robot, right, and you programmed it, it could do jobs that it would take somebody 4 to 8 years in college to attain that job. And like in Matrix, all you got to do is download the properties of the job, the rules, the education into the AI robot in an instant. And now it's taking away all those people's jobs who have to, and now we're not accounting for what about student loan debts they might still have, or and how are you going to have an education in something you can't even get a job in because a machine can instantly download everything it took you all those years to learn.
Yes. So let's go into a little more into things.
Siding with the civilian rebellion against the...
Hey, y'all ain't ready for that. So
Shifting homelessness individuals into long-term institutional settings for humane treatment through the appropriate use of civil commitment will restore public order. Surrendering our cities and citizens to disorder and fear is neither compassionate to the homeless nor other citizens. The president now directing several federal agencies, including Health and Human Services, HUD, and the Department of Transportation, to assess their grant programs and give funding priority to states and cities that prioritize the following: enforcing prohibitions on open drug use, urban camping and loitering, and urban squatting. The order comes after the Supreme Court ruled last month that unhoused people can be arrested and fined for sleeping in public spaces. That decision overturned a lower court ruling that deemed the practice cruel and unusual punishment.
So you might want to take your tent and move it in a wooded area.
Not only that, Henry, you know what else I think is appropriate for this situation to speak on?
Yeah.
They're talking about government funding, right? And we supposed to trust that when they took away the food stamp. If they took away your food stamp, what makes you think they will not take away your government housing grant by the same means?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, the government shut down, so we can't pay the housing grants. Now everybody who is just housing, back on the street. If you're back on the street, you go into the internment camps, or you're going to involuntary incarceration in one of the state or federal facilities, whatever is appropriate for your level of social status. You know,
the future is now. It was a movie, a lot of movies that they made about the future, the state of being of America. One of this movie was RoboCop. RoboCop 3, we seen something similar to what's going on here in the land of the free. Things that we could never imagine. Only think it's only done in a movie. Let's break it down.
Siding with the civilian rebellion against the forces of OCP. Here we actually see the wheels turning. It is time to build Delta City. And you don't just start with constructing buildings, you gotta start pushing out all the people in your way. There's a lot of poor neighborhoods where OCP wants to build, so they put together a private military force to clear the way. OCP runs the entire city now, including the police department. They build military weaponry. They can definitely make something like this happen. And now, 30 years after it came out, it's impossible for me to watch this movie and not see the real world. We have seen the militarization of police over the decades, especially since the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, with military hardware and vehicles being delivered to US police departments and then deployed against protesters. This situation in RoboCop 3 reminds me a lot of the protests over the Dakota pipeline in 2016, where you had law enforcement doing the bidding of oil companies, tear gassing people, firing rubber bullets, pepper spraying people, and using dogs against the people trying to protect their natural water resource. RoboCop comes across poor, frightened people in a church hiding from the military forces outside, and though he is an officer of the state and OCP, he cannot act against innocent civilians. He has competing directives: uphold the law and protect the innocent. Here he must make a human choice, and he chooses to fight for the people.
In RoboCop 3, they had a lot of homeless people, and they was rounding them up, sending them to internment camps. RoboCop found out later, majority of these people who was get sent to these internment camps was deceased. Not in jail, not rehabilitation, where they find them a job, a home to stay, help them with their drug addiction, they was deceased. And we see that police do things for private entities also. These cities that we believe belong to states is private entities. They have executives. They have mayors, which is the president of the city. We have the same circumstance occurring today where
Henry, let's not forget something too about the RoboCop, right? Because I feel like this is important for us to say. They were politically in the media covering it up, right? Saying they were bringing these people to the internment camps for relocation, reassignment, re-education, in order for them to establish lives elsewhere while they was building this city, right?
Yeah.
But it was really exterminating the people who they was bringing into the internment camps. So, with that being said, the reason why I'm saying that is because if we're talking about it's a similar parallel today to what's going on, so that means that we as critical thinking people have to understand the people that are going to get sent to these internment camps for appropriate amount of time, and then they will be appropriately handled as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Appropriately moved from existence. You know what I'm saying? You know how it is. This is YouTube. Everybody knows we got to say all these extra words for us to say certain words that we can't say, because even though it's established in the English language and it's not swearing, it's appropriate language. But, you know, we have to, I don't know how now with the established criteria, though, they think we got to be politically correct because we have to be careful for triggering people's psychological aspect, when everything they're doing right now is to strictly trigger people's psychological aspects. You know what I mean? In order for them to get involuntary internment. You know what I'm saying? Come on, bro.
Yeah.
Crazy ass scheme. It's a plot, you know, by the rich people to take out everybody else, you know? And everybody's going to be like, yeah, but they need us to buy their stuff. Listen, if they own all the money in the world, they don't need us to buy anything from them. If they own the printing press for the money, they don't need us to buy anything from them. If they own all the hard drives that store all the digital currency data, including your bank account, your retirement pension, etc., and so forth, then they have no reason to even worry about you buying their stuff. They've already established their wealth in the last 100 years to the point where they wouldn't be able to be broke if they spent all of their money in the next 100 years. But I guess people don't realize that, you know, because they try to play us with these modules of entertainment, these bubbles of psychological comfort based on your ownership of things, right? But a lot of people don't know that in the Agenda 2030, it says no one will own private property anymore. So if in 2030, they're talking about by 2030, no one will own private property. So I have a question, and obviously, Henry, it's not for you. This is rhetorical. It doesn't need an answer, but it's just to make people think, you know what I mean? Shout out to Dane Calloway. And it's, if you own a house, you own your cars, you own a boat, etc., etc., then in 2030, do you own these things if they said no one will own private property? You have to think about that. How are they going to take your private property from you?
Let's play
Henry
this.
Henry, hold on. Henry already said it a couple of times. He said the key policy a few times already in this live. And before Henry gets into the clip, I'm going to put y'all on. It's called eminent domain. All right, go ahead, Henry. Play that clip.
Eminent domain is the term used to describe the government's power to seize private property for public use. Eminent domain is frequently used by transportation departments building highways through developed areas, for example. But other forms of big infrastructure and capital investment projects might also depend on the ability to seize private property. You can imagine then that eminent domain can be very controversial. It doesn't help that government hasn't always used this power wisely or fairly. One other note of caution if you're thinking about adding eminent domain to your vocabulary: make sure to avoid the common mistake of pronouncing or writing it as imminent domain. I am not exactly sure what eminent domain is, but it sounds kind of scary. The power of eminent domain is described in a section of the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution called the Takings Clause. These few short words have been subject of some intense legal scrutiny over the years, but let's just say that the line between constitutional and unconstitutional is being constantly litigated. One of the most famous Supreme Court cases involving eminent domain, Kelo versus New London, even inspired a major motion picture called Little Pink House, which was released in 2017. The 2005 ruling in that case decided that the government's power of eminent domain included the ability to seize property for the purpose of economic development, even for private interests.
Even for private interests.
See, this is the real deal, right? The game is like, if the government, which, see, we as the, melanated people, we already know this game that they play with that because we've been through it thousands of times already in the last 100 years. The eminent domain, right? Building highways and social structures, et cetera, going through black neighborhoods, going through urban areas where they know that the development is progressing in a positive manner when they wanted it to be in that negative manner, so they couldn't do it by that means. So then they had to go in there and take it away. So you have to think about it. They'll do the same thing to you. 2028, 2029, leading up to 2030, where nobody owns private property anymore. And the reason, and the funny thing is, listen to this, right? Y'all think that you're living your lives regular right now, but all these policies and enforcements that's going on, and these corporate hostility, because that's what it is, corporate hostility, the fact that they're raising up the price of things when they don't have to, and they're recording record profits, which business-wise, you got to think about it. Business-wise, that doesn't make sense. So if in the last 5 years, every year I've made record profits, that means that I should be able to be good where I'm at. I can afford to relax, but they're still raising the prices of everything steadily. But nobody questions it because they just pay. Oh, a Coca-Cola. What if we go back 10 years ago, right? A Coca-Cola was $1.69, $1.70 for a 20 ounce. Now a 20 ounce Coca-Cola is more expensive than a 2 liter of Coke. Make it make sense. A bag of chips is more expensive than almost everything else you could buy on a shelf.
A small bag of chips, you spend 50 cents for a bag of chips. Now, there's less chips in the bag.
Right.
And the price is high.
And the price is $3, Henry. It'll make it make sense, bro. $3. A bag of chips is $3. But you could still buy something else. Like, for example, right? Think about it, Henry. A bag of chips, you go in there, you gonna buy you some Doritos, right? They're charging you $2.79 for the bag of Doritos, right? But you could buy a can of Chef Boyardee for $1.90. Make it make sense.
It's also,
you know,
it make one thing priority. Prioritize medication over their rent. I got to pay my rent. I can't buy my medicine this week. I got to pay my rent. I can't pay my electricity till another time. It making one reevaluate things, and a lot of time it's very uncomfortable.
And the funny thing is, Henry, they're doing it in a way where you can't budget your income because of the those type of assessments, and the money you're making is not the amount equal to the amount that you have to spend. Everybody in America got to live above their means. Because think about it. How many people you know that they got credit cards, they're using their credit cards? Oh, I got to go to the supermarket this week, so I'm going to buy it on the credit card. I didn't have enough money. Like you said, I had to pay for my rent. I got to pay for my medications with my actual physical, tangible money. But now I got this credit card, though. So I'm going to go buy the groceries so I can feed my kids with a credit card. And now next month when the bill comes in, I still don't got enough because I'm only making the money to do X, Y, Z with the tangible money. So now I got to use the credit card again to buy the groceries until the credit card's maxed up. You know what I'm saying? And this is how they start chewing people up in the rat race. You know, this is how they chew us up in the individuals in America, especially corporate America. These people who've been making millions, billions, and trillions of dollars off of our incomes, off of our consumerism, right? It's November, so we might as well bring it out because it's November. In the last, think about this if you're just the average viewer. In the last 10 years, how much money have you spent on Black Friday alone? Forget all the other days of the year. Black Friday alone. And I guarantee you that in that 10 years, if you do the totality, it's going to equal 1 year of your salary. If you got a salary, it's going to equal.
It might come to the point. It might come to the point that there is no more Black Friday, or only a few people can afford Black Friday, Cyber Tuesday. It comes to the point that a lot of homes, as we going to see this month, will not be able to have food stamps. So priority, and some people might not even have Thanksgiving in itself, or it make people reevaluate family and commitment.
Well, we also got to realize, this is a social breakdown of the community, right? They're trying to chip away at the fabric of society while at the same time trying to psychologically act like they're promoting the building of orderly society, when the truth is they're the ones bringing the chaos. because there's no reason that you need to be so extreme in the execution of these actions that they're taking. They don't need to come through there and just sweep all these homeless people up like it's like it's criminal activity. You know what I'm saying? And if they had established a working system, not just a shout out to your dad, a kickback system in order to launder and extort the system for money, like the Democrats is doing right now, for various social programs in other countries, when we can't even afford to fund the social programs in our own countries, in our own home country, such as the EBT and the Medicaid. It doesn't make sense. Why would we be making these different social programs in third world countries? It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it shouldn't make sense to you as the average American viewer. And people also got to realize in the deeper end of it, but they're telling you, oh, but we got money to, so they don't have money to pay the food stamp. They don't got money to help the homeless people and the socially inept to gain stability. I'm not talking about giving them checks, and I'm not talking about any of that other stuff. I'm talking about an established stability, a consistent job, and a wage that you could pay your rent, that it's going to cover your necessity expense. Because if you have that type of a stability, then it's going to establish a further structure, not just the stability, not just the foundation, but further structures, meaning that people would be able to pursue and progress in a more enhanced and advanced manner in their own lives, based on the simple fact that how the human brain psychology works is it's a reward system. So think about it, Henry, right? We'll use you as an example because you're here on the show with me, so we can get in a dialogue with it so people can understand what I'm saying, right? Now, Henry, if you established in your job, right?
Yes.
And you have your foundation, your apartment, your house, whatever, etc. It doesn't matter what are the way you're going to fill in those little details, but it has to do with the process, right? If you are able to afford all of your bills and you had an extra $1,500 a month, now, wouldn't you be able to, in the reward system, what is the first thing that your brain is telling you could do with that $1,500?
Fix on things that made me more independent.
Like what?
Transportation.
So now
outside of public transportation.
Hold on. We got to go one step at a time. So now you would be able to gain transportation, right?
Yeah.
You would establish a vehicle for yourself. Now, see, you're already stepping towards what? The structure. You see what I'm saying? The stability already brought you the next framework to the next structure, right? Other than being just in the foundry, the stone or the basement of the structure, right? Yeah. Now, after you establish a consistent transportation for yourself, what would be something else that would be the progress?
Well, food.
No,
first I take care of needs. That's needs. Yes.
Established already.
I say entertainment.
Entertainment, right? Because if you're working hard, it's only right that you got time for your leisure, like Goku says, right? one of the most important things for your physical development is you have to rest. You have to rest because you have to recover from doing the established work, right? You can't be working for 6 months straight with no day off. You're going to collapse.
Yeah.
You're going to collapse. You know, so if you want to go on a vacation with your family, that's something that you can use the money for. That's the reward system. When you come back from the vacation and now you're motivated to go back to work, you know, you're going to be doing your work at the top of your game, at your best capacity. You see what I'm saying? Because it's the established framework of the reward system. The human brain works where when you get rewarded, the human brain seeks the greater reward. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So maybe also another thing you could establish for yourself, Henry. You could be living in an apartment, but you could have saved the $1,500 for a year straight, and now you got a down payment on a house, so you and your kids could live in the house. From anybody who wants to in the audience, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but established mortgages is cheaper than rent. Mortgages, you're talking about $750, $900 a month. 2-bedroom apartment is easily double or triple that. But guess what? Most people don't got $10,000, $15,000 in liquid asset to go into the bank and say, look, I can put this up against the house. Can I move in? I can afford to pay it. You know, they don't, because we don't have the ability to accumulate such a stability. We don't have that type of stability to accumulate these type of funds. A lot of people got to work 2 and 3 jobs. And then you're still not making it because remember, you got to pay off the credit card for being able to cover you when you didn't have the money to expend. You know what I'm saying? What about people who what if you was out with your kids riding bicycles and your old ass fell off the bike and broke your leg? You can't go to work. Now you're out for 8 weeks because your leg broke. What about all them? Where's the checks coming? Where's the checks coming in from? How you paying your rent? You see what I'm saying? And now these are the things that's gonna be, and to bring it back in full circle, these are the things that the government and the lobbyists and the corporate America are relying on to happen. These little miscues and mistakes or mishaps in order to throw your ass in this involuntary incarceration.
And a lot of time you have corporations feel like, just like they feel like horses was obsolete, using cows to prowl is obsolete. Now they looking at us as human beings as obsolete. The year or the age or the era of robot and AI, using robots to fill the position of police officers. Let me get to this clip real quick.
where the rebels are. You could tell your bosses to kiss my ass!
We
See,
dealing with iRobot, RoboCop, several movies.
hey, and it's
Judge
funny too
Dredd.
because let me just say this too, Henry. For people who've seen the movie, you know, in the next clip, he goes into the gas station and literally steals a map to find out where the rebel base is based on the film. And he also destroys the machine, property damage, vandalism, to steal the map. And when he walks out, he cuts the sign down in order to threaten the station owner from executing justice on him. And notice in the movie, and notice it was never any applied consequence for the actions of the machines. It's never any applied consequence. So that's letting you know he just killed 4 people without any probable cause. He just killed them. So you have to realize they're showing us blatantly in our face how they're going to apply the logic. Because how can you arrest a robot? How can you arrest a robot? A robot don't care if it goes to jail because it doesn't have feelings. It's not a hurt because it got to go to jail for 25 years. And a robot 25 years later is going to still be fully functional. He's just going to turn on and it's going to be like the 25 years never went by. You know what I'm saying? And that's because there's no logic behind this. It's purely corporate greed, and it's purely the effect of enforcing their will upon individuals in order to control the lives of people who are not themselves. Andrew Tate, I heard him say it on on a video yesterday. He said, when you get to a certain point of being rich, you bought everything already that your heart desires and what you want. The only thing left for you to do is buy power. And the more people's lives you control, the more power you have. So we have to understand that, well, I see what he's saying, but I don't think that they understand. A lot of people keep saying things like that, what Saint just said in the bottom of the screen, where they're saying that, oh, well, you could just program the AIs to work for you, right? You could. Or you could do stuff like opening your own business, opening your own franchise, et cetera, et cetera. But like I said earlier in the show, which I don't think a lot of people comprehend this aspect, Henry, and this is why they're having trouble adjusting. This is a psychological cognitive dissonance, right? Is that these people own all the resource, including the currency, including the methodology of distributing the currency. And they don't need you to buy their stuff anymore. They established this already in COVID. They don't need you to go to work, and they don't need you to buy their stuff. They actually make more money when we're not at work than paying people checks. They've already established this. There's well-established facts. They have all the data fields from 2020 to 2023. They already know. So we can create a franchise, we can get all these trusts and all this stuff. That would have been good 25, 30 years ago in the late 90s to establish that. But now it doesn't matter because one AI could do the job of 100,000 people. One AI could do the job of 1 million people. A robot can be a cop better than a cop can be a cop because the robot doesn't have fear, nor does it have mortality where it has to worry about being killed. People don't want to establish in their brain that we have come into the part of society in its progression where it's only two outcomes. It's only two outcomes, right? There's one outcome, right? Where it goes into a utopian society. But that already has been systematically established, taken away. The utopia society. Right? And we know, and I'll tell you exactly when. It was when all of you people in the United States voted against universal basic income. You took away the utopian society because that was the way that the AI and the machines was going to be able to take over like a handoff in football to the running back. And he was going to be like the quarterback and just be chilling after and watch the play. Right? And we was going to still get paid for staying home and doing whatever we wanted to do with our lives freely without having to go to work. But everybody voted against that because they said, nah, we got to go to work. People got to work, etc. And now we're at the point where now it's going to be dystopian society, the opposite. Because the people who control all the resource said, all right, since you don't want to cooperate, we're going to go along. We're going to go with our plans anyway, and we're going to remove you. We're going to forcefully remove you. But it's going to be systematic. It's funny how Saint said, well, I'm going to buy a $20,000 robot for me and my wife, et cetera, so the robot can go work for them, right? But the robot has a back door in its programming that the government can just shut it off if they want to. And then if your robot don't show up at work today because in transit from your house to go to wherever it's established at work, they froze it in the middle of the sidewalk. What you gonna do? Now you don't get paid. Your robot never came back home. Now you just lost $20 investment on the robot, and you lost the income the robot was providing. So now what are you going to do? Now you're looking like when people go into the internment camps, homeless, no EBT, no Medicaid, no. Yeah, come on, Henry, it's a game, bro.
Yes,
it's so
because
crazy. It's so crazy that the regular people still don't get it.
Rich people getting richer. We don't need another billionaire because that's a corrupt system. In a system where we have 20% of the people below poverty, that's a failed system. And we dealing with
Hold on. Let's show the failure, right? Let's show the failure. Because if 20% is poverty, right?
Yeah.
So how in a fair and equal system, how would it be balanced? That means 20% of the population has to be billionaires, right? That would be the balance, right? If we're talking about on the scale, right? Everybody knows how to weigh something up on the scale. If we got 20% over here on the lowest, in the lowest income, then we should have equally 20% in the highest income, not 1%. Not 1%.
And middle class is disappearing every moment.
Sliding the 20 to 30 to 40 to 50.
And understand also that we got to take a little trip in history and understand that America, or we could say the colonies, was founded by companies. These are businesses. A plantation is the beginning of enterprise, free enterprise, where rich people could freely get richer more. And let's take a little history lesson.
In the early 17th century, the Dutch East India Company, VOC, emerged as a formidable force in global trade. Established in 1602, it became the world's first publicly traded company, boasting a monopoly on Dutch trade with Asia. The VOC's rise was fueled by advanced maritime technology, financial innovation, and a network of strategic alliances. With its vast fleet of ships, the company not only dominated the spice trade, but also established colonies and trading posts across Asia, from Indonesia to India. The VOC wielded immense power, influencing politics and economics, and setting the stage for modern capitalism. Its legacy continues to echo in contemporary global trade practices, marking a pivotal moment in history.
Now,
Everything that was going on in the past.
Real quick. You said, now let's get the keys out, right? We got to get the keys to the car out. You said free enterprise, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't, how was it free, right? If it costs money. In order to establish the colonies in America, right? Everybody knows history if they've been through school. I don't have to go too deep into anything of the historical context of what I'm saying. They went to the King of England, Spain, France, Portugal, Italy to get these advancements and these loans, I guess is the best way to say it, right?
Yeah.
To establish these free. Remember, I'm saying that part on purpose. That's the emphasis. Free enterprises, right? It was only free because the only thing free about it was they didn't pay the indigenous people for the land that they was establishing this free enterprise on. That's the part of it that was free. They were just going to take over those lands. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it didn't have European investment, aka Jesus Christ, then it was available for pillaging, plundering, land thieving, raiding. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about Mortal Kombat characters that wield electricity. You know what I mean? We out here moving real work. So they had to say, you know what? We're going to establish some religious tenements to justify what we're doing in these people's land, right? And then they come into the free enterprise. Here we are. Established colonies, established corporations. Let's be real. Let's say what it is. We got the 50 corporations of the United States of America, of the United States Corporation. The Congress is just the board of directors. You know what I'm saying? Donald Trump, his seat already has the exact name, executive office. We don't even gotta go into that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? We don't even gotta go into that.
And we
Now,
also come
go
to the
ahead.
point that you own everything, you control the business, and you service who you want. And if you don't have that many people that you could serve so you could get richer because people are homeless, the impact
Let me ask you a
on
question.
the
Let me ask
next
you a question. 'Cause you're
generation.
on point. Yeah, you're always on point with this subject matter. So I'm gonna ask you a question, right?
Okay.
In the feudal system, right? In the feudal system, feudalism, right?
Yes.
If you own private property, do you pay taxes or tribute to the kingdom?
Yes, by the wages of the
You
serf.
own private property, meaning you own it. You have the land deeds.
No, they pay the serf pay you.
Right. So now, but also you don't have to pay the king anymore, right? You don't have to pay a tax or anything like that because when you bought your property, you already paid the taxes that was included with the property, right?
Yeah.
So now let's fast forward to America, right? So think about it. All these people who think they own their house, right?
Right.
You know where I'm going with this, Henry. How are they
Mm-hmm.
paying a property tax if they've already paid the money on the resident?
Facts.
If you and people's gonna say, oh, blah blah blah. No, you don't own the land if you're still paying a property tax. You don't own it. The United States owns that land. Henry, let me ask you a question. If you're paying property taxes on your property, right? No matter what kind of property it is, a home,
Yeah.
acreage, no matter what it is, bro. If the government comes and claims eminent domain, can't they take your stuff?
Yeah.
Because it's the government's land still, right?
Correct.
So, therefore, what did you really pay for? Nothing. You're living in a house that the government owns. You're living your car, you don't even own your car. A lot of people be out here talking about, yeah, I just bought this new Benz, or I'm out here stunting in this new BMW, but still you pay the excise tax. If you paid the excise tax, that means the government owns your car. Why you now see this is where people is confused, Henry. It's called payola, right? The system is called payola. Now, it is illegal, constitutionally speaking, it is illegal for you to have to pay the same tax twice. That's illegal for you to have to pay the same tax twice. So, think about it. When you buy your car, didn't you pay a tax already on the car when you
Yeah.
bought it? Sales tax, right? You're supposed to be now the owner of the car. So why are they charging you an excise tax to own the car? That's illegal.
Yes, in some states like Virginia, twice a year you gotta pay property tax. Twice a
That's the
year,
excise tax, right? That's
yeah,
the
you
excise
gotta
tax.
pay for a car. Like in
Remember,
Louisiana.
excise. Hold on, let me just say this for the people so I can break it down for them linguistically, right? Linguistically, because a lot of people need to understand how the words break down. Excise is a compound word. It comes from extra and exercise. It's an extra exercise. In what? Paying tax. That's why I tell you at the end. Remember, it's an adjective because it needs a noun. Tax, right? You see what I'm saying? So there extra exercise. The extra exercise is you pay more. You pay another tax. But you've been paying property tax. You paid the property tax when you bought the home. You paid the sales tax when you bought the car. So how do they got the nerve to charge you a tax again? Twice a year. In Virginia, twice a year. That's pretty steep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Are you, and then now let's ask another question with the car, right? Do you pay sales tax when you got to buy gas? Are you paying sales tax when you got to put new oil in the car? What about when you go to buy the brakes? What about if you need a new suspension? What if you need a new transmission? What if you need a new alternator? What if you need a new radiator? Are you paying sales tax on all these items at AutoZone? Of course you are. Come on. How you, on the same car, you just paid sales tax on when you bought it. So by the time the car reaches the end of its lifespan, you've already paid X amount of taxes, X amount of times after you paid the sales tax initially on the car. How does it make sense? And you know who is the best one at exposing this? Kanye West. Even though he's a certified crash out, he be saying a lot of stuff that's actuality and factual. Like he said, in America, it is better for you not to own your car or your house because they'll just tax you on it and they will keep taxing you. It's best for you not to own anything. Because think about it like this, Henry, right? You pay rent, right, Henry? You pay rent?
Yeah.
Do they charge you tax on your rent?
No.
No, they don't. You never wondered why they don't charge tax on the rent. But guess what? They charge tax on the mortgage, property tax.
Yeah.
See, how does that make sense? I own my property, but I got to pay a tax on it. Somebody else is renting a property and they don't have to pay a tax. Why? Because you have no ownership, so there's nothing to tax. If I don't own my car and I lease the car, there's no tax on leasing. There's no, if you're leasing the car, it's no excise tax. But if you own your car, it's an excise tax. These things is all part of the plan. It's how they get you homeless so they can get you in these involuntary incarcerations, these internment camps. And guess what? If you don't make it to the level of homelessness, they're hoping that the stress and the strain and the strife that these issues cause in your everyday life and the pressure to maintain the status quo cracks you mentally in a way where they can involuntarily incarcerate you. It's messed up, but that's how you're playing the game. Oh, but I'm still working at my $150,000 a year job, but I cracked and now I got bipolar. Oh, throw him in jail. You got bipolar. See, Henry, this is, bro, they just took you out your job. They just came to work with the police because they know because they know from your Medicaid files, you just got diagnosed with bipolar. So they're showing up at your job on a Wednesday afternoon to put you in custody.
Because a lot of the writing, it's a shifting homeless individual into long-term institutional setting for humane treatment through the appropriate use of civil commitment will restore public order. It's not that, hey, I'm going to take you out the street. I'm going to help you to find housing, employment, and make you suitable.
Hold on, Henry, make sure you add psychological treatment to that.
Yeah, psychological treatment, drug rehab, and what you need to be a productive citizen. The writing in the executive order is to force these individuals into institutions, and institutions is a form of business. We're gonna help the jails.
Henry. Let's establish the foundation, right, of what you just said. Meaning that we got to expose it in a way that people is going to see it for what it really is, right? You just said institutions is a business, right?
Yes.
So in America, what is the most legitimate, profitable institution?
The government.
No. I'm not
No
talking about the
jail.
government. I'm talking about outside the government.
Prisons.
No.
What's that?
Because prisons ain't even making this much money. Come on, bro. Colleges and universities. Where else could they charge you $85,000 a year to be there? Where else? In jail? In jail, when you're in jail or in prison, the average prisoner is like, to take care of the average prisoner is like $8,500 to $15,000 a year. That's like community college level expense, brother.
Yeah.
Community college level. What about Harvard University? Is that not an institution?
Correct.
What about, let's not even go with Ivy League. Let's go to a step down. Baylor University in Texas. Is that not an institution?
Correct.
What about UCLA in Los Angeles? Is that not an institution?
Fact.
All right, now let's graduate off of education, right? Are the hospitals not an institution? Hospitalization is an institution.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a funny game they want to play. It's a funny game. Because remember what you just said. They want to institutionalize these people. But technically, the people who's enrolled in college right now would be institutionalized, right?
Yeah.
They're just following the different criteria under the policy, right? So, but if you start to go outside the policy, mental illness, put them they're already institutionalized, just put them in the internment camps. They're already we already know the institutionalization they got in the youth, the school to prison pipeline. That's well established already.
Yeah.
People's not applying the wisdom. So what's the difference if you work at if you're the teacher at the school, right? Teaching the kids elementary, whatever. Just so happens you got some mental illness on your record. Now they showing up at the school, knocking you off because you said something in the class. You're teaching a history class and you said something that was anti-converts. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
you said something that they deem anti-convert in a history class mind you. And now we know that we know in his youth, he was treated for ADHD when he was in school, the same institution he teaches at. You know? So let's take him to the internment camp for what he said about Israel. Got him. Bing, bing. Bye, bye. Now you for the appropriate amount of time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So what if they never change their standing on how they feel about Israel? So does that appropriate amount of time mean unlimited time? Question you should be asking yourself, people.
Yeah.
And
We
what
already see
go ahead.
what they do to our youth. If you haven't, let me show you. These are teenager children in Washington, D.C. The control, you can't be in certain areas, certain time. I remember a few years ago, they was making plans for certain cities in Alabama that the city would label economic zone and certain people not allowed in there. The economic zone could be privately owned. Private companies could use the police to maintain the public. We already know with drug usage, absent parents in the home, going to work, parents who going to work.
Hold on, Henry, because we gotta keep the cumulative effect going, right? How we keep building the case on them, right? You just said a key effect that's a cumulative effect. Single parents not home. That's because they got to go to work to pay the bills. The bills that they can't afford to pay, that they got to use the credit card now to be able to live a decent life, a decent lifestyle, right? And that's a cumulative effect, right, Henry?
Yeah.
The single parent is not in the home because they got to pay these bills, right? We're not saying nothing that's out of line for what we're bringing out. Now the teenagers is reckless. Now what's the number one thing they always say, Henry? They ain't got no guidance. They don't got no guidance. How you going to have guidance when you got these people's parents working 80, 90 hours a week just to pay the rent? How you going to do that? It's only 24 hours in the day, and you got them working 8 to 12 hours. And during the hours that they should be raising their children and guiding them.
Yeah.
Without remorse, by the way. Without remorse. I'll give an example. Earlier this week, I was in dialysis. My ride was late to bring my medical transport was late to bring me home. The lady told me, who was in the nursing position, that she had to go pick up her children, but she couldn't leave legally because I was still there. You know, which doesn't make sense to me in the aspect of children. I'm a grown man. I can take care of myself 100%. I have no disability to the point where I can't take care of myself or watch out for myself. I've been in bad neighborhoods my whole life. And the neighborhood that my dialysis is in is far from a bad neighborhood. Far from it. And they're trying to say, oh, because if something happens to you, which I know something wouldn't happen to me in that aspect. But what about your child? What about the child? The child is going to be, now the child has to be the one to be in the position to be self-reliant and have to have the qualities of an adult. No, that doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? We have to be have more compassion and logic with how we deal with these type of situations, because these people wanted to keep pressuring us. Because think about it, Henry, it goes back to the mental illness part of the involuntary internment, right? Think about it. So if you can't get out of work, Henry, because to go pick up your kid from school at the designated time, what is the school going to do?
Call the system.
Call CPS, right? Because they're legally obligated, right? Yeah. Because the parent is legally obligated to stay with me. Like I'm a child or something. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not a child. I'm a grown man. I can take care of myself. You know what I'm saying? Why is the child the one that has to be abandoned, right? Especially when the parent is not being negligent. It's because the system doesn't allow it. But then the system folds on the parent by now CPS gets involved, now it's a case open, et cetera, et cetera. And now, Henry, isn't that causing you mental strain? Yeah. Having to worry about those type of capacities, right? Now, if you crack psychologically, they can throw you in the camps. Imagine you're a doctor. Imagine you're a lawyer. Imagine you're well established in the community and you have a psychological breakdown. So you're telling me they can throw you in the internment camp for an appropriate amount of time? What if they want to take your kids? What if that's the whole goal? They want to take your kids from you. And people better stop thinking like the government don't want to take your kids. Of course the government wants to snatch your kids up. We know this for a fact. You know what I'm saying? They want to snatch everybody's kids up. They want to have control of the populace. Complete control, dictatorship. You know what I'm saying? Authoritarianism. If you don't listen to what we say, we're going to shoot you dead, like Hitler said. Come on, you got to think about these things. It's not rocket science. Now they can say, oh, Shin psychologically is unfit to take care of his children. Put him in the internment camp and bring the children so we can put them into the system and the adoption agency. Henry just told you how his own experience was. You know what I'm saying? And Henry, and by my accounts of the people that I've known to be in those situations, Henry is a very privileged person and in his own right deserves his flowers for going through what he went through and be able to provide himself the established living that he has. Especially considering that he had to go through that type of initial lifespan in his childhood. You know, it's not a lot of people who go through those things and say they survived it. A lot of those people who went through that is incarcerated right now. And we're talking about capital offenses, capital murder. We're talking about home invasion. We're talking about narcotic distribution, manufacturing, trafficking narcotics across state line, trafficking narcotics on international line, trafficking firearms. People who never had a chance because that was the only way that they was going to be able to establish stability was to establish patterns of criminality. Now they're making the established pattern of criminality mental illness in general. That means, so remember, anybody and everybody who went to school in the 90s, early 2000s, I know a good 75% of y'all got an ADD or an ADHD diagnosis in your file somewhere. Which means that right now, in 2025, they can use that against you in order to put you into the involuntary incarceration. Well, you have a history of mental illness, so we're going to take you in for observations. Come on, Henry, this shit is so real, bro. They didn't even establish that you got a mental breakdown. They just know your medical file and said, we're taking you in for observation because they want your kids. Your kid got a rare blood type, or your kid got some type of genius level IQ that they want to exploit, but they knew you as the parent wouldn't allow the exploitation.
They know the medical record because they just attained it, ICE.
And you know why?
Hold
on, Henry. Let's establish we got to establish the legality of it. What is ICE? What does ICE stand for?
And immigration, custom enforcement.
Right. Immigration custom enforcement. Correct. The key letter is C. Customs. Henry, what is customs?
That's dealing with trade. Dealing with
import, export, correct? Import, export?
Yes.
All right. So now, everybody in the United States of America has established since their birth a birth certificate, correct?
Yes.
And don't you have your invoice number?
Yes, and that's Social Security.
Right. That's why you're my guy, because you already know where I'm going with this. So everybody has a stock, right? A stock number, a product number, a name for the product, aka your name on your ID, your identification. You know, so the reality is we're all customs, right? Import, export. How is it import, export? Oh, I don't understand, because we're already in the United States. Well, across state lines, I think R. Kelly and Diddy well established the pattern of being able to enforce human trafficking across state lines. Henry, let me ask you a question. This week you went to NYC, correct?
Yeah.
So you had, how many states did you have to go through to go from Maryland to New York? About 4, right? 4?
No, 2.
2? All right.
Yeah, 2.
So the minimum
leading there.
The minimum. Let's do it like this. The minimum 2, the maximum 4.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Understand? Do you have did you get an invoice for your travel?
No.
Did you declare to the government you were traveling across state lines?
No.
So you are now human trafficking yourself. You didn't think about that part, did you? No, because you're forgetting every time you pass a state line, it is a custom tariff duty on goods. Your vessel is the goods. You paid for
That's
a
just
bus, or a
like
plane, or a train. Hold on, listen
that's
to what I'm
just
saying, because
wait.
this is the
Let me say
important
this
part.
part real quick.
All right, go
That's
ahead.
just like going to Virginia and get some cheap cigarettes and going into New York City and trying to sell them individually. They will look at the bottom of the packet to see if it have a stamp, and that stamp is a tax.
Hold on, Henry. Hold on. You have to establish the law precisely, because remember, the law is precision, right?
Yeah.
Based on custom, even if you're not selling the packs, what is the limitation for possession? Because you can have Virginia stamped cigarettes in New York City. That's not illegal. The limit is 2 cartons. 2 cartons of cigarettes per person. So if you have 3 cartons, you're going to jail anyway, even if you wasn't selling it. For interstate trafficking, you're still going to jail, even if you wasn't selling it. Interstate trafficking, right? Because you have 3 cartons in your possession. We already know this. Anybody who sold weed knows what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? This is reality check shit. Now, let's go back to what I was saying originally. Henry, if you bought a plane, bus, or train ticket to go to NYC from Maryland, now why doesn't that count as the invoice? Let's see if you know.
I'm always, you know me, I'm say, tell us, we want to know.
Because you paid for the service. You paid for the service. You didn't pay for the custom tariff duty of the transport of goods across state lines. You're from Louisiana. That's a lot of state lines, bro.
Yeah.
Traffic.
To get where I'm at now.
That's a lot of state lines for human trafficking. And guess what that applies the wisdom against? The 15-minute cities. If you're from Louisiana, why the hell are you in Maryland if it's 15-minute cities? And now think about how the federal government and the government works, bro. Law enforcement, right? Enforcement, ICE, enforcement. That means technically every state from Louisiana to Maryland can charge you with human trafficking across state lines. And legally, you have no defense because you traveled. Did you pay taxes on each border where you passed? Did you pay them their taxes? Custom tariff duty?
No.
No, you didn't. You was just freely traveling. You could freely travel. I can freely travel. But you and I is a form of possession, self-possession. Our vessel, however, is an occupied entity. It's an occupied vehicle. You know? Shipping and handling.
We are dealing with trying time. We have AI replacing human beings in the work field. We having government layoffs. Today is November the 2nd. Some states is fitting the bill for the Department of Agriculture to hand out food stamps. We have the state of Rhode Island, a judge in the state of Rhode Island had told Donald Trump because they sued him. Individuals sued the government in the state of Rhode Island, and the judge say, you gotta advocate funds for SNAP benefit. You cannot hold the funds. Donald Trump say, I don't have no problem to give the funds out. Just show me how I could do it legally. Where I could take this funds from and how can I give it to the people legally without having a disorder in the Constitution prior.
Well, technically, Henry, it's since the SNAP benefit didn't go through on the first, technically they did violate the Constitution because it could be considered cruel and unusual punishment. Because maybe not for the able-bodied working people, right? Talking about people who can go to work and they can provide they can get a paycheck. But for disability, handicapped people, and children, that's cruel and unusual punishment because we have no other methodology of being able to replace that benefit. Because it's a serious, and that's a serious matter because that could be considered crimes against humanity because that's inhumane treatment to people who are invalid in order to take care of themselves. You know what I'm saying? And we're not talking about social deviants. We're not talking about criminals. We're talking about people who, when I go to dialysis, these people who I see that they can barely move around. These people who have to get escorted onto the dialysis machine and taken off the dialysis machine by EMS, paramedics. How are they supposed to get food for their house? Your boy's getting wheeled out of here by the ambulance. He's getting wheeled into dialysis from his house by the ambulance. They coming in here in wheelchairs and electronic scooters. It doesn't make sense. How are they supposed to provide a living for themselves? How are they supposed to get food? That's inhumane treatment. So you could pay for me to go to dialysis, but you can't make sure that I can eat? How is that even making sense? That is hypocritical and contradictory all in itself. That's an active contradiction. You want me to be healthy and be on this and make sure I show up for dialysis. But when I go home, I got to starve because there's no food here. And I'm not talking about myself because I'm not the same. I'm not just anybody. I'm built different. And I got to salute my father for that. I'm built different. I was trained differently. I was raised differently. My mentality about survival is different. But I observe. I'm a trained observer. I observe these people every day. I see them. And they are incapable of what I'm capable of. They're incapable of it.
And I want to play another YouTuber information. He broke it out in a way that I want everybody to see. So let me share the screen. Okay.
I'm gonna play the clip real quick.
Can you hear Shan?
Shout out to Dane Calloway. I already said that earlier in the show.
Yes.
You heard about the fact that there was a new law that passed that made it illegal for someone to be homeless. I'm gonna play the clip real quick.
Well, here we go. Okay, so in the U.S. currently, folks, there are approximately 771,000 people who are considered as homeless. Either they consider themselves as homeless, or the state has put them into a bracket which says they do not have permanent housing. Today, Donald Trump signed an executive order that makes homelessness illegal in the United States. And those 771,000 people I just mentioned have just become criminals. Folks, the source for this is ABC News. It gets worse every day.
He said ABC News. Let me verify that. Hold up. I'm a look for it live. Ooh, it's real. Everybody covering it. CNN, USA Today, Southern Poverty Law Center, NPR, National Homelessness Law Center, Fox News, CBS, AP News. This is real. So, and shout out to Papa Duck. Let me play a little bit of Papa Duck. What up, Duck?
Back with another video, man. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Go to ubuntuapparel.com. That's how y'all can help me with this journey, man. And to my monthly subscribers with subscriptions, thank y'all so much, man. I really appreciate it. Basically, man, if you pay attention to the video I just showed you, they're forcing people to be slaves, basically. So if you didn't want to work, you didn't want to buy a house, a car, you didn't want those responsibilities, you just say, hey, I ain't into that. Then it's illegal for you to be what they call homeless, right? So in order for you to not be a homeless person, or, you would have to go punch in the clock. You would have to become a slave, so that now you can pay for these things, the house, the cars, the car insurance, and all this other BS that they got us all paying for, which makes us slaves. We exchange our times for these things they say we need in order to live in their society. So you got to go to work if you want to pay that phone bill. You got to go to work. You want to drive that car. You got to go to work, which keeps us as slaves. Remember, money is fake. Slavery is just cheap labor. Let's keep this in context, okay? Yep. So by you being homeless, which most people think people become homeless because of drugs and child abuse and all that. A lot of times people become homeless, mainly more men become homeless because of divorces.
Man.
Go look this up yourself.
It is not a game. When I tell y'all that this is a trend for some odd reason, I mean that. I don't know where this came from. Now all of a sudden couples that you thought would never separate are separating. And both sides are suffering. The men and the women. This was not supposed to happen. But it's happening.
What I'm telling you is this. It's crazy for these people to just have the audacity to say that, you're going to go to jail if you sleep here, or if you do this, if you do that. And we look at people like that in society and look down on these people, not knowing their situation. You got to remember, drugs are put here by these same people that's writing these fucked up laws.
That's right.
So the ones who have gave up because of drugs, it didn't come from them. It didn't come from me. It didn't come from you. Think about the rat trap we in. All this shit is one big trap, bro.
It's a setup. That's
Name one person
correct.
like I always say, that could take a coca plant and make coke. No one.
Shout out to my brother Duck. That's absolutely correct. Bro.
This is a trap. And we're talking about traps by men, not God, not no deity. We're talking about men. And the crazy part is this, I always told y'all, right?
I would call them cowards.
The reason it's illegal to feed the homeless is because you're aiding them, which stops them from going to commit crimes. And when no one is committing crime, guess what? They're losing money.
Yep.
They're losing money. I told y'all in Arizona what happened.
The institution. Like I said, they want us in institution. They don't
Hold on. Let me say this
to better ourselves.
The crime, how they're saying that if it ain't no crimes getting committed, nobody's making money, that's false. That's false. Because law enforcement is going to get paid regardless of its crimes. Right? Because let's think about this, Henry. Let me ask you a question. In the richest neighborhoods in America, do you think there's crime?
Yes.
Explain.
Okay, I say in the
I'm
state
talking
of
about
Maryland.
gated. So let me ask you a question. Let me make it more specific. Are they robbing Bill Gates' neighborhood?
No.
Are they robbing gated communities?
Oh, in gated community, no. These neighborhood.
I'm not talking about regular.
Might be some white collar crime.
No, but I'm talking about straight crime, like a stick up, a home invasion, breaking and entering, stuff like that. No, it's a simple answer. It's no. But yet these neighborhoods have police forces where there is no crime. There's places where the crime rate is 0. But yet they have full police forces. Not to mention, these gated communities and these elite neighborhoods have private security also. Not just law enforcement, but their own private security. But there's no crime. But those people who's doing the enforcing is still getting paid. You have to understand, even that's part of the trap. They're convincing you that crime is how law enforcement gets paid, when law enforcement gets paid regardless of crime. Regardless. Just like who? How's the government shut down? How's the government shut down, but Congress still got paid? All right, Henry, you can play the video now.
You right about that. Them senators saying House of Representatives, Congress still getting paid.
Yeah,
they signed the deal when the prison came up. They signed the deal that this prison will be occupied 97% of the time. And when it fell below, they sued the state because they said it was going to be 97% occupancy. But when it fell below that, they sued them. That's crazy. How can you sue them for people not going to jail? So when you go give them food and toiletries and all this stuff, you're stopping them from committing crime. And guess what? Someone is not making money. This is a trap, bro.
It is.
I've done 1,000
industry.
videos on stuff, and it be simple stuff. I could talk about more complex stuff, but who gives a fuck about all the people in the White House when we know the whole organization is full of bullshit? You feel what I'm saying? Like, you have to understand, dog, like, the world we live in and the people that's governing the world we live in are soulless people. What I'm trying to explain to y'all is this, bro. Black folks got it the worst. All folks got it bad. And the ones at the top are the ones we should get after, not each other.
Yep, I agree.
Think about what I'm telling you.
I agree.
They keep us fighting.
They want a civil war, not a revolution. They want a civil war. The government and the oligarchy, they don't want a revolution. They want a civil war. They want me and you to fight because of who we elected as politicians. The color of our skin.
Listen, but most people realize the war has already been initiated. The war was initiated 10 years ago already. We've been in the war for 10 years straight already. When they ended the Afghanistan war, That was the beginning of the war that we've been fighting for the last 10 years.
I remember.
And that war is, hold on. That war is purely economic.
I remember during President Barack Obama during a protest, a lot of American police officers went to the state of Israel to train. We give the police officers military grade weapons. Give them military grade transportation. And that's not for show. That is to be used to move protesters out the way, to disrupt living surroundings. We see it, the militarization of our police force. Let's finish this off. Okay.
Well, hold on, Henry, 1 second, too. Because it's an economic war, right? A lot of the regular civilians can't see it. And they'll say to me, right now, people's probably thinking, why would he say we're in an economic war? Because we are. It's the citizens against the corporations. The funding versus the consumers. Remember, they keep raising the prices of stuff. When I work in retail, I've been working in retail for at least 11, 12 years of my life. And one thing about working on the cash register, you talk to a lot of customers. And one thing the customers always say is, how come the prices go up, but the prices never go back down? They never go down. And I'm not talking about being on sale. I'm talking about the base price, the overall base price, the basic price. If an item is $3 and then they mark it up to $3.25 or $3.50, it's never going back down to $3 again.
I remember a canned soda was 50 cents. The lowest you could find a canned soda is at a Walmart vending machine, and it could be $1 or more.
Don't you remember when the Walmart soda was 10 cents?
Yeah.
You go to the vending machine, you could get a soda for 10 cents. Now you just said it's $1. That's a 10 times increase.
Yes. So let's finish this off.
Fighting each other. They keep us discouraged, entertained, while they continue to do what they're doing. You got to think, man, how you think this shit gonna look in another 100 years? How you think your children's children gonna survive in this shit? These people give money to other countries, our money.
Yep.
And we can't even come together long enough to stop it. Why do we pay taxes? If we all stop paying, what the f they gonna do? See, they don't control.
Hold on, bro.
Monday.com, the opposite of any work platform we tried in the past. We tried other work management platforms, not naming names. They all suck. Monday?
Now,
you physically, they control you mentally, because it's levels to levels. There's some people that's financially all right. They're not giving a fuck about what I'm talking about until this problem arrived to their door.
Yep.
Remember, it was all about
doorstep.
poor people. As we gotten up into time, now the middle class.
Poor middle class up.
I've been saying this for years. Ain't no more middle class. Once they get rid of the middle class, it's just the poor against the rich. And these people are continuing to feed their agenda, which is going to leave us in the shit dust
if we don't do nothing about it.
So I know I started this video off talking about, you know, the homelessness, but I'm trying to get you to wrap around your head how they put together these curriculums and fool us. Because like I told you, if it's illegal to be homeless, right? If it's illegal to be homeless, that means they want you to go to work. And when you go to work, no matter what you do on American soil, you're helping them build their empire. Get what I'm saying? Money is fake.
And by the way, that's how it was in the past. And that's why I kept telling y'all that slavery was employment. They slapped the label slavery on it, but it was nothing but employment. They keeping you away from your life by making you by forcing you to go into this so-called work field, so-called labor field. This is forced labor. Just like schooling is compulsory. That's forced schooling. This is forcefully institutionalizing you and defranchising you. This is historical. This is nothing made up. Nothing made up. They've been doing this. Now they just getting a little bit more advanced because of technology. And that's, you know, I'm glad I stopped that other video because OpenAI, yeah, if y'all have not been paying attention, I'm gonna have to say that for a little bit down the line during this live stream because that's deep. And I've been forewarning about what they're doing with AI, and it's beyond scary because of what they got planned. Folks are not ready for that. I'm gonna get into that in a second. Let me shout out the Papa Duck. Shout out to you, brother, and yeah, it's time. Let's make it happen. The Blackfoot Indian, thank you for the super chat. You said I need your help, Slim. All right, Slim, well, talk to me. Get us out of the 13% community server. Exclamation point 13, please, so they can click that link. Pay attention to the chat. The link is going to pop up. It's going to 13%. Get in there. Do what you got to do to get up in there for security reasons. You're going to understand what I'm saying when you get in there. Do the security portion. Get up in there, then, yeah, DM me in there. Yes. Not all of them, but the majority of them. Yeah, they got that. I mean, because they have no choice. It's a part of their contract. Some parts of their contract are stating that they got to date outside of their race in order to keep it up. They got to date outside of their race in order for them to keep up that lifestyle. It's in their contract. All right. Let me move on to this other one. Now, this one right here, same time.
Henry, I gotta say something, brother. Where you at?
I'm right here.
All right, so these folks just said something again that was critical information, but at the same time, it was also part of the curriculums. That's why, and I don't think they readily identified it, right? Because they're not using real-time strategy, right? This is one of the things when I was under military assessment that it made me better than regular people in my ability to analyze details, right? But not just analyze details, but see the solutions of problems, etc., pattern recognition, and the open interpretations, right? They said, oh, the police is gonna XYZ, right? Now, they're like, all right, well, they're in control of the police and all these people because they're getting paychecks and etc. XYZ, right? Now, Henry, let me ask you a question. Did they or did they not have the FBI, the CIA, the judiciary, Capitol Police, at Department of Education, Department of Homeland Security, all these departments during the government shutdown? Weren't these people working for free?
Yes.
I mean,
I don't think they working for free. I
hold
think
on,
they
hold on.
getting paid.
Listen to what I'm saying. Who needs a breakdown once you understand for the last 30 days, these people already been working for free. And you think that that because they stop income, that these people is gonna stop going to work? If the police don't get paid, they're not gonna show up. No, that goes against their oath. They're gonna show up because they gave their word they would. Now, getting deeper into the society. All they have to do is guarantee the comfortability of these people. All right. Well, we're going to take away the money, but we're going to make sure we take care of you guys because you're the enforcers. You're enforcement. So you're included in our situation as the auxiliary. You're the auxiliary to the situation. So meaning that the executions that we're going to do on the regular people, we won't do on you as long as you comply and execute what we say. You'll be able to keep your house. You'll be able to keep your car. Your kids will still be able to go to their nice little school. But you just got to go enforce it on the poor people. I mean, if the military ain't getting paid, but they still overseas, doesn't that tell you something?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Russia and China take a break. I don't think they're going to take days off.
So we're going to save more for the next show. Time to get ready to call it a night because people got work. Don't want to keep y'all up all night. Have time to recuperate. I want to appreciate everyone who came on tonight for watching, for the live comment. We appreciate you. And for the people who are going to come on later and watch the show, thank you. Please help this show get seen by others. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Share the video. Share the video link. Subscribe to the channel. We are sitting at 1,060. Help us move to the next level, 2,000. And up, the more we go, the more people in the algorithm going to see our shows, because we not just putting shows to entertain, we putting shows that educate. Some things you might don't agree with. Some things you might don't understand that we speak on. But take your time and listen. Watch the show to the fullest. And a lot of things that we speak on, I believe, will resonate. We are here because we never want to end the work and service. Newsroom. Never end the work and service. We are here because of you. And you is helping us reach higher heights. We're not here for the money. We are here because we care. We care enough to share the knowledge that we run into, things that hit the news 1 second and the next second is not around anymore because another topic put it on the back burner. We throwing it back on your face and we putting it in a way that you can understand. And thank you again for coming and sit down while we discuss this. If you feel like you want to join the show as a special guest, comment, ask us. We'll allow you on. We'll send you the link. If you coming out of Facebook, coming out of Instagram, coming out of TikTok, coming out of being a subscriber, or just a walkthrough, you, the people, this is what we doing this for. For my part, I want to thank y'all, and I hope y'all have a wonderful night. So, Shin, you have anything to tell the people?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with my regular stuff, but I just want to make a special shout out. You know what I mean? Rest in peace, but happy birthday to my aunt. You know what I'm saying? It's her birthday. So I just want to make sure that I put that into the universe, you know what I'm saying, for the ancestors, respect and reverence for the people who made me who I am today, you know what I'm saying, the people who helped raise me. And Newsroom 16.1, never end the work is service, because it's always room for news, you know what I'm saying? There's always more room for the news. So you know what it is. Positive vibes brings positive results. Positive results means you're accomplishing your goals. Just because you're going through a negative circumstance doesn't mean you can't have a positive outcome. So stay inspired, keep your ambition, and show us how it's done. We are out here observing. Let's get it done. Peace.